Welcome. My name is Melanie Schlotterbeck, and I work with the nonprofit Hills for Everyone. I'm here today to talk to you about 30 by 30's mapping updates. The deadline to submit any updates, meaning changes in gap code status, recreation or access level, or something's missing from the map that needs to be included to help California achieve its 30 by 30 goals. So the goal to protect 30% of California's lands and waters by 2030. We are well on our way, but there is more work to do, and getting the data as accurate as possible will help in that situation. So let me share my screen and we will go ahead and look at the 30 by 30 website. So californianature.ca.gov has a variety of mapping tools, and you can see right now that we are at 26.5 million acres, and we have, 3.5 million left to go in order to hit our first goal. So if you go to the Explorer applications, there are a variety of explorers that you can open to view different information. So I'm going to look at the Conserved Area Explorer, and this shows the map of California on it. And you can see the detailed information on the left that talks about the terrestrial environment as well as the marine environment. So I know I want to focus on an area down here that Hills for Everyone is working on in terms of its 30 by 30 work. I helped with an acquisition of 320 acres next to the state park and then 400 acres as well. So I can tell you they're not showing up on the 30 by 30 map. They were required as a GAP 1 status, so it's durably protected through agency agreements and grant funding. One of the things I also tend to do is look at the protected areas database maps, so the CPAD and the conservation easement database, to confirm what is or isn't showing up. So this is that same geography that I'm looking at, and this C shape and this backwards L shape are the two areas that I know need to have some type of protection on this conserved areas map, and they're not showing up at all. I also see that above this green block, this purple should not be there. It is not protected, it's still in private ownership. Let me just pause for a moment and say there are also conservation easements that you can look at, and that's the gold colored information on this map. None of the properties that I'm looking at actually have a conservation easement on them. So this is just one more tool in terms of durably protected land that you can use in order to help bolster the 30 by 30 numbers. So how do I end up getting landscapes that I know are protected, that are durably protected in GAP 1 or GAP 2 onto the 30 by 30 map? So let's start with the calands.org website, which is where the CPAD and CCED information is stored. And we're going to start with the information at the top here. There are toolkits that you can download in order to get information. So you can download a toolkit by clicking on this information here. And I happen to know that working on those properties next to Chino Hills State Park was with the Mountains Recreation and Conservation Authority, which is right here. So when I click this link, I have shape files download as well as databases. And let me show you. Here is the database of properties, which shows you if there's an easement, what the acreage is, how much of the property is in GAP 1, 2, 3, or 4 status. So let's say you have 100 acres. Part of that acreage includes a parking lot as well as a building. So let's say 3 acres of it is GAP 4 because of the building and parking lot. That means the rest of the acreage could go into a different GAP. So you do have some granularity on the parcels that are being included. So this information is showing easements for MRCA and the level of access as well. So you're going to need to select Is it closed? Is it restricted? Is it open? Is it no access? And that helps determine a gap status as well. See, let me get back to the maps here. So I want to start with, here are the files that I possess that can help the folks doing the updates at Green Info Network that are collaborating with the state. So it's these 3 parcels, 1, 2, and 3, and then these 4 parcels, 1, 2, 3, and 4, that all need to be listed as GAP 1 status restricted access. So you can go into Google Earth and create files, KMZ files, and then you click Save Place As, give it a name, and then you want to send it to cpad@calands.org. This also applies to conservation easements. And let's go back to our protected areas database, looking at that. So here are the gap code, that's information. So a state or national park would be considered gap 1. Those that are designated as wild and scenic rivers, for example, it's a protected wildlife corridor, it's got a conservation easement on it. Level 2 has a little bit less protection, so it's not necessarily to protect species, habitat, biodiversity, but there are some disturbances that do occur and some activities that may be counter to natural land preservation, but it's not the predominant thing. So gap 1 or 2 are what count towards 30 by 30, and then gap 3 and 4 do not. So if you have a property that's currently at gap 3 and a piece of it could fit into gap 1 or 2, we would encourage you to submit that granularity to the cpad@calands.org email address to get the map just a little bit further forward in terms of its accuracy. So you can look up any type of owner in this particular process. So San Diego River Park Foundation, let's do Department of Fish and Wildlife. Here's their ownerships. So this is allowing you to filter information from the CPAD and CCE database by owner. And you get, again, a shapefile and an Excel file in order to view that information. So I would submit either a KMZ file or a shapefile. And let's say I'm not super tech savvy, but I do have a plat map. I could actually say San Bernardino County Assessor Parcel Number 1033-151-09. That 160 or actually 120 acres is protected. Same with -10 and -06. So that's another way to do it. Or maybe you are a little bit more tech savvy, but you aren't able to share a shapefile or a KMZ file. You can send a map that gives context to the ownerships. So what I have done is I've outlined in this purple, the blue, and the yellow, showing that MRCA owns these, and because they were protected through a Wildlife Conservation Board grant and have a notice of unrecorded grant agreement on them, that is what provides the gap 1 level of protection, and it's not yet open to the public. It's got restricted access, so please adjust the access levels as well. That's kind of it as it relates to updating the 30 by 30 map. The deadline, again, is March 31st in order for that to count in the next annual report under this current administration. And you can also get more information on the terrestrial detail map. So it's going to show you how much of the lands on this state of California map are showing as gap 1, 2, 3, or 4. You could also look by county. So my area happens to be Orange County. I'm going to filter it by Orange County. Oh, look at that. The big Cleveland National Forest is gap 3. Why is that? Because it wasn't set up for natural resource protection. It was actually set up for mining. So it's not going to be in the protected classes in Orange County. But we've got things like Chino Hills State Park, the Laguna Coast Wilderness, Crystal Cove, Casper's Regional Park, the Irvine Ranch Open Space Lands, Bolsa Chica. So you can get more detail on your particular geography and how many acres are counting in your geography towards 30 by 30. So for Orange County, we've got 61,000 acres that are counting of the 101.4 million acres of the total land area of California, which, when all is said is done, is 0.06%. So not much. I'm sure there are other geographies that are doing better, but you get context through these maps and these different tools. So the county owns the majority of the lands protected. Then we've got nonprofits, state ownerships, federal, city, and then other jurisdictions. So I hope that information gives you some context for 30 by 30 and how you can update this map. Again, the deadline, March 31st. Send your updates, your shape files, your plat maps, your assessor parcel maps, your KMZ files to cpad@calands.org. And that information should include the contact information for whoever the owner is, as well as the actual files, the gap code status, 1, 2, 3, or 4, hopefully 1 and 2 to count towards 30 by 30. And then what map you're trying to update. So in my instance, I need to update both the CPAD map and the 30 by 30 map because they're both wrong. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My email address is Melanie, MELANIE, @hillsforeveryone.org, HILLSFOREVERYONE.org. Thanks so much for your time.